All right. Welcome to the Fly and Forget podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Ryan. Today we're recording episode 6 with Rich Schafer out of Charleston, North Carolina. Rich is the franchise owner of G-FORCE of Charleston, and he is originally from New York, but he retired out of Charleston, South Carolina. So say hi to everybody, Rich.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. All right, so as we discussed before we started recording, because we did some pre-recording stuff, obviously too. But this is all about you, man. We're going to talk about you from your upbringings in New York to your time through service. So fun facts about Rich before we do kill it is he's a dual service member, right? He was in the Navy and the Air Force. Retired, by the way, 25 years, multiple theaters of deployment. Interesting stories that we're about to get into. If he wants to talk about them, it's up to you. So, well, let's kick it off then, man. Let's talk about Buffalo.
Yeah, grew up, normal family, youngest kid. My dad owned a business. It was always something that I wanted to do, and kind of took me a while to get there. Started this, bought into a veteran-owned franchise about 3 years ago. Growing up, we just, my dad worked hard. I just saw that kind of thing. My mom, just normal family. Like I said, had a bunch of 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and you just work hard and you try to get to where you want to be in life. And I wanted to be in the military.
So, question about your dad's business. What did he do?
Yeah.
What was his business, and was he prior service or anything like that?
No, he wasn't. But he owned a dental lab. They make dentures and false teeth.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing like the American dream, small business owner.
Yeah.
That's a crazy niche. I've never heard anybody own like a company like that. So
yeah, I've met one other person, that I actually met there on my pool team. And her father. Yeah, it's not many people. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it works out. Works out, right? All right. Sweet. What hobbies and stuff were you into when you were growing up?
Yeah, I was in, anything outside. Karate I did for quite a few years. Played baseball, football, all the normal stuff that, the kids do. It was different times. Obviously, you can tell by the wrinkles, no cell phones. So we were outside a lot, come in when it was dark.
That's funny. Yeah, well, you were obviously born before pre-internet, what I mean? So, that's great. You are my oldest guest so far, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I want to get some more elderly guests. I want to get like back into the Vietnam era and stuff like that.
Right.
It's hard to find people. One, because there's so few now, right?
Yeah.
And then 2, it's just like they're all retired. Most of them are retired. So, I'm trying to catch people that have businesses and kind of broadcast their messages and stuff like that. That's kind of the point. So,
makes sense.
Okay. Karate though. Karate Kid. Is that what turned you on to it?
Yeah, no, it's just something I don't know. I got into. I used, when I was younger, I'd fight a lot. I don't know why. And maybe I should do something. And anyway, then I stopped fighting once I got into karate. Yeah, I don't know why I got into it. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's something that I think people realize when they get into mixed martial arts is that it's so hard to be proficient that you don't want to fight anymore because you have respect for it. You know what I mean? I listen to a lot of jiu-jitsu guys and stuff like that because I don't do it anymore now that I'm out and broken. Yeah. But I have great respect for it, and I loved doing it when I was younger too.
Yeah.
So,
that's any of those individual sports or things. I like team sports and I enjoy that, but if you don't do well that day at the tournament or whatever, it's not on anyone else. The offensive lineman didn't blow his block and tackle you in the backfield. It's on you. Stayed up too late and whatever.
Yeah. So it's I did wrestling when I was growing up. So I loved martial arts, but I got into wrestling, and wrestling. I mean, other than my time, some portions of boot camp were so hard. Some of the deployments and did some time special operations, like some of the long, fatiguing days and training events, stuff like that sucked, and SEER and all that other stuff. But wrestling sucked. Like
Oh
it was
yeah.
so difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like it professionally grew me as a person
Oh,
because
definitely.
you build such high resiliency and like
Mhm.
resolve. You know what I mean? And then of course the military helped
Yeah,
out a whole
yeah.
lot. Which so when you were growing up, did you compete in any tournaments or anything like that?
Yeah, I would, local, like in the Northeast. Yeah, I was in tournaments. My sensei was from Japan. We had the opportunity, a couple of us, that had been in it a while, to go to Japan, and I kind of turned that down because that was going to be years of childhood giving it up, and I didn't really want to do that and train for more international stuff. But yeah, just something that I didn't want to do. I liked karate a lot. I just didn't. I didn't want to. Be like an Olympic athlete and and not have a childhood. And it was something my parents kind of let me decide. As a teenager, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Just keep doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was like kind of the atmospherics with your family's relationships and dynamics? Was it pretty
Yeah.
easy going or anything like
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah. I always tell my sisters mainly. I'm the youngest. That they had kids until they had the perfect one. And which is me. But we joke. I'm the favorite. We all know that if they watch this. No, it was good. It just you big family. You fight over the last slice of pizza. And you just it was good. My brothers were 10 and 11 years older, so I never really fought with them because there was such an age gap. But when I was little, you wrestle and you goof around with your family, and good. We're still close, and yeah.
Were you the only one that joined? Were the any
Yeah,
other
my,
people?
my brother actually was in the Navy. Yeah, it was the only other affiliation with the military. I knew I was going in the military probably at 14. Wanted to fly, and I knew what I wanted to. Yeah, but it wasn't really a family thing. I mean, my family's supportive of the military. They just didn't really have many in it. Just one brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's track through a little bit.
Hmm.
And so you got recruited, and
Yes.
were you immediately out of school and you got
Yeah.
recruited? Is that how it
So
went?
yeah, I took the ASVAB in school, and then I did I joined when I was I think I signed the paper when I was 17. And
When was this, by the way?
yeah, 89. And yeah, which seems old to everybody listening, but but anyway, and then I did delayed enlistment. I finished my senior year, and I was 17 in boot camp, and had my 18th birthday in boot camp. Yeah.
Okay, and then how was the recruiting process? I know that
Yeah.
you said you wanted to fly, but you ended up being enlisted originally.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
talk me on that
Yeah.
one.
Well, so I used to read all the Chuck Yeager books and all that, and he said he was such a great pilot because he worked on farm equipment, and he knew he was a mechanic first. So and then I also became a young married man. So like the Air Force Academy was not in the books. So yeah, I said, well, why don't I go in, and I became a crew chief on C5s, big heavy aircraft, and and then I went to college at night in between whatever mobilizations, and it took me probably 7 years, but to get my bachelor's that way, taking time off. But yeah, so I wanted to know the aircraft, and that's the route that worked for me at the time. With it being a father and a child.
So, C5, by the way, is a massive
Yeah, it
aircraft. People
is.
don't
Yeah,
understand how big that aircraft
yeah,
is. So, I
yeah.
was a logistician in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
I was like your load planner that would come out, and
yeah.
you and I would meet on the ramp, and
Right.
we'd load the aircraft
Yep.
literally together, which is
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about like how you like some of the training and backstop
Yeah.
stuff? Because you're my
Yeah.
first Air Force veteran,
Yeah.
which happens to be dual Navy, which is
Yeah.
cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Unique.
uh, how was the training in the Air Force
Yeah.
boot camp and stuff like that? And
Yeah.
then like, did you originally want to be a loadmaster, or did you just kind of end up with it?
Yeah, no. So yeah, the boot camp was, I was 17 in sports, and it was an Air Force boot camp. No offense, but it was pretty easy. I probably gained weight, I think, and it wasn't that difficult. Maybe we'll talk later. The officer candidate school for the Navy is a little different. Marine gunny sergeants, that was different. Especially I was a little older, but yeah. So the training, they kind of send you through, little programs where you learn general aircraft, and the most of the training is on once you get to your base. Then because they don't have, it might have changed by now, but they want you to work actually doing maintenance. So it's a program that they'll just OJT basically, and it was you'll find at the C5, if you ever flew on them, they would, every time they land they break, and they have a nickname. Do you ever hear the nickname for it? Or Fred? You ever hear that? Yeah, fucking ridiculous economical disaster. Yeah, it's the hydraulics. It's I mean, it didn't fall out of the sky, but when it landed, it would break. So whenever we flew on different deployments, when I went in the Navy, if we were on a C5, I would say, "Hey, we're staying in Spain overnight." And they're like, "We're not supposed to." I'm like, when we land, this plane will break. And
I bet that, what is it, per flight hour you had to have like 10,
yeah,
10 maintenance hours or something
and
ridiculous?
the hydraulics, the way it kneeled, and the front came up, and yeah, it just wasn't a very reliable, as far as like, not unsafe, but when it lands, it's gonna want to stay for a while.
I never got, my whole career, I never got to fly on a C5. Most of most of the missions were C-17.
Yeah,
C-130s, AC-130. That's a dope
yeah.
aircraft, by the way.
Oh yeah, I haven't flown in one. I've seen.
Yeah,
Those are nice.
super sick. So okay, so you become a loadmaster. So, but your admirations were to fly.
Yes,
Eventually.
yeah. Yes.
Let's talk about Air Force deployments in a little bit of time,
Yeah.
and kind of work your way towards the Navy career.
Yeah. So the Air Force, I don't want to call them all deployments, because and I think now everything, anytime you leave, they call it deployment, but TDYs,
Yeah.
TAD, depending on the branch. I went to some nice places, Hawaii for 4 weeks, or when you stay, it's Air Force, so you stay in nice hotels on the beach, and probably the one time I was actually shot at, like aiming at me and the people with me, was in during Somalia. I was a young guy, and we were staying in Ethiopia, and we'd fly down. They had a broke C5, go figure, and in Mogadishu in Somalia. So the army we didn't have any weapons. We just had our toolboxes. The army was going down on a convoy, and they said, "Hey, we're not letting them come, Air Force guys with toolboxes. It's heavy fire and that." So finally, they got us to fly with the Canadians and helicopters. And I was probably a E4, I think, at the time, and I think I was a ranking guy. And we were they're landing. I'm like, "I don't think this is a spot." Choppers going, and I don't think this is it. God, it's it. And so we got out, and we're in the middle of Mogadishu, and we started getting shot at. And, it took us a while. We were hiding, and because we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Throw a torque wrench at them. And so anyway, we finally see a UN truck. It seems like it was 45 minutes. It probably was 10. I don't know. But that was like the one time in my most of my deployments where they're aiming for me and people around me. Yeah.
Crazy. That's probably the most Air Force story.
It is.
Of all Air Force stories.
And the thing is, in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, where I was staying, my hotel, I had a king, what do you call it, a California King. I was at E4. We had 5 restaurants, and that was waiting for me.
Got to get back to the hotel so that way you go and relax, get away from that bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh shit, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right. So that was how many kind of overseas missions? Because you're a crew.
Well,
you're a crew
chief,
you know what I mean?
Chief,
so you're out all the time.
Yeah, crew chief. So I tried. They had an option like crew chief, a flying crew chief, and I didn't really do that a lot because of my college. I wanted to finish it, so I went to a lot of where else have I? You go to just support things. That went to Las Vegas for a week. I was a month from my 21st birthday, and I'm like, well, I better not try the fake ID here, in Las Vegas. Not a week or a month before. So not a ton of deployments. For most of them were in the Air Force. I went to Japan and Alaska and cool places.
Yeah.
Hawaii.
What year were you in Somalia when that was all going down?
It would have been. I was a young guy in early '90s.
91 probably.
Probably it was about a month from the movie Black Hawk Down. We could have been whatever Air Force maintainers running around,
That's crazy.
and they that stuff they chew on or like
Yeah.
we
Opiate?
got lucky.
Does
Yeah,
opiate least?
it's something whatever
Yeah.
they had a name for it. I forget.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think about that too.
Yeah.
Because it's Afghanistan too. It's all over.
Yeah.
Africa at least.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so sick. What year did you complete your degree? What was your degree in as well?
Yeah, Embry-Riddle as the aeronautical university. Want to stay with that, and then aeronautical degree with like a minor in safety and aircraft maintenance. Probably with hindsight in today's world, I probably would have made it, engineering probably. But in the 90, 98, 99, because I tried to put my package in to be a pilot for the Air Force, and at the time, by the time I would have been in flight school, I'd have been 27 and 7 months, and you had to be 27 and 6 months
To start flight.
so it was a month. Yeah. So I called the Navy officer recruiters where I was stationed in California and at Travis Air Force Base. So I was in the middle of Sacramento and Oakland, and I tried Sacramento. Internet was kind of there at that time, but you didn't really use it for that. So I call, and the guy's like, "You're active duty Air Force?" No, we can't. I hung it up, called the guy in Oakland, and he said, "Yeah, come down. You take the test, physical. It's a long process." And then, he called me at work. I was active duty Air Force. Called me at work, and said, "Hey, you've been accepted," and I had to talk with my wife. I was, had young children, and then bam, Pensacola.
So, how many children had you have by this point?
Yeah, I had 3. So I had twins. There were a boy and a girl. There were 2, and then a 9-year-old girl. Yeah, so there was 3.
Dang, 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had them right away then, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I was young. Yeah.
Okay. So you went straight into the Navy.
Yes.
You want to talk about like how you ended up with getting towards the like Naval Academy stuff, basically,
Yeah.
and then going through training and blah blah blah.
Yeah. So the way there's, I guess, I'll probably forget one, but to become a naval officer, pretty much all the branches, you can go ROTC. Well, you do that in college. That wasn't an option. The academy, you got to be single, a certain age, and have be appointed. I was active duty. It wasn't happening. So I went OCS, Officer Candidate School, and at the time they moved it back and forth. It was in Pensacola, and that was it was 27 and a half ish, or whatever, like I was talking about earlier. And I had been in the military and I was in good shape, but that was and I knew the games, but they're good. There was a Marine gunny sergeants.
I have one more question.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
before
yeah.
you get through and start talking about training completely. Did you do an inter-service transfer to go commission?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't,
A
how'd you,
lot of people didn't.
That's crazy.
Everybody was like, well, first time. The Air Force, and everybody was like, I don't know how to do this. And then they, oh, I can show you. And yeah. So it was. I got a DD 214 for one day, and I told my boss, this is a joke, maybe you shouldn't, but I said, oh, I can smoke a joint tonight, and I won't be in the military, but kidding. But then the next day I was, uh, whatever. I guess I had a line number, or they called it for E6, but I was in E5 still,
Yeah.
and I got paid when you're going through OCS. You're
Non-competitive, right?
yeah, you're in E5, and unless you were like prior enlisted at a higher rank, and yeah, so it was a pretty tough. I mean, physically and mentally, they push you hard.
So now when you go through, you get non-competitive promotion the entire time here. So let's say that you have to go to college,
Yeah,
obviously while you're trying to
yeah,
commission. You go through MESAP program, which is the Marine Corps version. I'm sure every
yeah,
branch has
yeah.
it. And you get, so let's say you go as a corporal. If you non-competitive promotion, so if you're eligible to get promoted, you get promoted.
Oh,
If
wow.
it takes you 4 years to get your degree,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you were in zone to be a staff sergeant, you would get promoted
Oh, that's
the entire time. So if you didn't make it through,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know what happened. If you didn't. I'm assuming it wouldn't be anything
yeah.
negligible, I guess, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know if they have that. If they did, it changes a lot. It's on a need. They're going to pay what they need. If they're short officers, then they'll have better programs, of
Yeah.
course. And
Well, there was a surge during
yeah,
that time period too. So
yeah, and what happened with pilots, I kind of knew this too. Is a lot of the pilots were getting old, so they were like the Vietnam era pilots were airline pilots, and at 60, I think that's changed too. They had to retire. The airlines like you got to go. So all the military pilots were getting out. They want to make big money. So that's how I kind of swept in.
all right. So let's go through your OCS training,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you
yeah,
obviously knew that you wanted to go into the Navy to be the pilot because
yeah.
Marine Corps has pilots too. People
Oh
don't know that.
yeah.
So
No, I went. They were in flight school. Yeah. Yeah. No, they like what's the one thing? What do you call a pilot who can't land on an aircraft carrier?
what's is this a joke?
Yeah.
We'll send it.
Air Force pilot. Yeah, yeah. No, just kidding. I'm just a little envious, or a little aggravated with that the month thing. But no. So yeah, the boot camp or officer candidate school is. I mean, it's they take the guy once they're a gunny sergeant and above, Paris Island, and they're our drill instructor, and they're good. I know they're good. They're senior guys, and I knew the games, but they still get in your head. And then the difference I think between I haven't been through all of them, but talking to people is the academic side was insane, and then they overlap it with the physical 1,000 push-ups to get mail call, or and you're like, all right, we have this in the morning, and you're like, well, we got this navigation test, and they try to overload it and stress you out a little bit.
People really are not fully understanding how difficult the academia is when it
Yeah.
comes to the Marine Corps and the Navy.
Oh yeah.
Because like everybody sees us as crayon eaters. That's
Oh yeah.
that's the
Right,
modern
right,
joke,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's fucking hard.
Yeah,
I mean,
oh, yeah.
you have knowledge tests. Even when you're enlisted going through boot camp, we have knowledge
yeah.
tests. 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
You can get dropped in training if you fail a single test.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that's so funny.
Yeah.
So you go through all OCS training.
Yeah.
You obviously, what platform were you trying to go fly for?
Yeah, I mean, like everyone, F-18 Super Hornet, and so you don't know what you're going to get. They always save, that changes like anything in the military, how many pilots and what they need them, but they always save a few fighter spots for the top of the class, and yeah, so that's really what you're going for. Well, not everyone, but that's what I wanted to go for. I wanted to fly fighters. I worked on heavy, boring aircraft, and I didn't want to fly them. But who knows? You fly what you fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us through like your MOS training because I know you end up
Yeah.
having a rate change, right? So
Yeah. Well, so I mean, in that, like, you talk about in the Navy portion, or
yeah.
yeah. So okay, so I'm in flight school. I halfway through ish, somewhere in there, and I became a single dad with little kids, and other stuff I won't get into. My father was really ill, in his family business and stuff like that. But so yeah, I'm like, I could, it's like going to med school.
Yeah.
It's a little different. Maybe a little more demanding, time wise. So my kids were little, and so I went in and talked with my Navy captain, who's like a colonel for everybody else, and kind of explained it. And so I ended up going out and going into reserves, and I didn't want to throw away. At that point, I had probably 11 years active duty, and so then I didn't want to go to, like they call them in the Navy reserves. They call it something like coffee and donut reserve units, and I didn't really want to do that. So I found expeditionary naval coastal warfare units and small boat units and port security, and we did a few. I went a few deployments on that, Kuwait and stuff like that for that one.
So, what platform were you going to end up flying before you had to change?
I don't know. I mean, I want to. At that point, you still don't know. You don't know till the end. I mean, I'm going to say F-18 Super.
You're a man, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what I would have got. I probably would have been, P3 pilot or something, which wouldn't be bad either. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, you don't know until the end what you're going to fly, or towards the end.
I don't want to dive into your specific divorce or anything like that, but I kind of want to talk through, because this is something I haven't really necessarily got into in the podcast. Because I mean, what's the rate of marriage at young whenever you're in the military? It's so high. But I want to talk about, like, now it's a little bit different. You have a little bit of benefits where you can, like, for example, they had the family care plan now.
Right.
I'm sure when you were going through, you didn't have any type of like backstop, like, support, unless your family was living close to you. Obviously, most people aren't.
It's a moving part too. For us, I didn't move a lot when I was in the Air Force. That's one thing you could homestead, they called it. That one base for 9 years, 8 years, whatever it was. But it was the military. I'm not saying the military caused it, but we're moving to Pensacola. She came and then said, and left. This isn't about bashing that, but it's about the military. It can be tough, moving around, being gone. And I was going to be moving more. You don't stay in Pensacola. That was the first initial part of the training. Then you move around, platform specific after that. But it's tough. It can be tough. And even today's military, it's still same. And we did have a lot of family type care stuff, but it's just tough moving, for the spouses and older kids, to new schools.
They restart,
and their friends are gone, all that kind of stuff for sure.
Makes them be a little bit resentful. That's what I was that's one thing, because you meet, of all my guests so far, you have a deeper story, because you had more time. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, you had multiple kids, do inter-service transfer, you went through a tight spot, and you end up having to take you were already on a different career path in your service, and then end up having to go a different career path.
Like, all right, now what do I want to do in the civilian world? I had that already set in my mind. Life throws curve. I didn't mention one of the twins. She has half a heart, so she had 2 heart surgeries, but lifelong. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
There was a lot. It wasn't staying on active duty would have been, I don't know, deserting kids, I guess, which I wasn't even an option.
What MOS, or I'm sorry, what rate did you end up getting in the Navy after the fact?
So then I became in the reserves. I became a fleet support officer, and I didn't really fill that role in the reserves. I did more. I ended up being the communications officer as a lieutenant, and then ops officer and executive officer of small boat units, or cargo handling units that actually had equipment and had missions. So I didn't really it didn't really fill that fleet support officer. They're kind of like HR.
Okay.
And I never.
I would hate that.
Yeah, no, me too.
Yeah, I would hate that a lot.
I the one unit, they're like, asked me, you want to be the admin officer? I know. I mean, I can do it. I don't want to do it.
Okay. So let's. So you did the entire time in the reserve. So you basically went to
Yeah.
your commanding officer and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
because of my family situation, like
Yeah.
right now, I have to get out of active duty Navy,"
Yeah.
and it went pretty well. It
Oh
sounds like.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I want to talk about like your time during the
Yeah.
reserve and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Can you take me through like a
Yeah.
chronological pathway?
Yeah. So actually, where we're at now at the Naval Weapons Station, I moved here to Charleston, and I went to the reserve unit, and they said, "Well, we have." I said, "What units?" Because you could kind of pick back then, where you wanted to go. And they said, "We have this MIUW." Like, oh, I know what that is. It's like they sleep in tents, and they're like the army. I said, "Yeah, no, that's the one." They have, I think I was lieutenant '03. So I went. They were doing their 2 week out in the field. Yeah, this is my group, and so with them for a long time, and then we just kind of that unit evolved to a small boat unit. Just kind of did most of it that way, and then I did do a couple deployments. I did one with them at the Kuwait, and then individual augmentee. Are you familiar with that at all?
Mm-hmm.
IA when you just kind of go fill a slot. The wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, are once it's we were there and we occupied, it's kind of the Army's job. The Marines even tend to leave. But we're all small. We're a smaller military than we used to be. So I just filled Army staff officer jobs, and
So what? So you went to Afghanistan and Iraq?
yes, yeah,
What years?
yeah, '08, and I think it was Iraq, and then I think 10, 10 around 10 or 11 for Afghanistan.
What part of Afghanistan?
Kabul.
Kabul.
Yeah, and
That's
then
fucking hard to see now.
yeah, yeah, I know now. It's,
You know.
the airport. That was kind of my job. One of them was, we're trying to work on security and flying people out for their 2 week R&R or leave. So at the Kabul airport, I really kind of knew that, the security well.
Well, it wasn't a
When
strategical stronghold.
Yeah, now when we left, without getting into all that, but how we left, and then left those kids, but yeah,
I'm going to put a plug in here because when
yeah,
people watch this, I want them to say, "Hey, if you have not seen the Sean Ryan podcast, I'm
yeah,
plugging this guy in."
yeah,
He
yeah,
interviewed Tyler Vargas. Was there during
yeah,
that attack, August 28th of
yeah,
2021 when they were pulling
yeah,
out of
yeah,
Kabul. I would recommend going. I posted it on
yeah,
my page the
yeah,
other day, so I want people
yeah.
to see that. Sorry, that's just not
No,
necessarily
yeah,
about this interview, but
no,
it's
it's
serious
definitely
business.
leading,
So,
yeah, yeah, and I want to see it, yeah, so
um,
for sure,
so 2 rotations to the Middle East is basically a staff officer, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
what's going on during this time period?
yeah. So the Iraq deployment, I was in the headquarters. I mean, I kind of like being more of the pointy edge, operation side.
Step of
So
spear.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so that one, I didn't travel at all. I just stayed on, Camp Liberty, whatever. Victory was big, huge place. That one, it was what it was. But then, when I went a couple years later at Afghanistan, I traveled a lot, worked more with the locals, and that one was I thought, a better deployment
Yeah,
because I got to get out and do something more.
it's no matter the theater you go to,
Yeah,
if you can um, work with partner forces,
yeah,
host nation personnel, and
yeah.
stuff like that, the experience is better because you get to grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to experience all the cultures and like kind of the
Yeah,
atmosphere of what's actually going on. And obviously,
exactly.
during this time period, you're talking about Afghanistan war is active war
Yeah,
zone. So like, if you can build relationships out there, you may
yeah,
prevent a fucking vehicle-borne
yeah,
IED or
yeah.
suicide
Right.
bomber or some kid walking up to the gate and detonating himself, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like something crazy.
Oh
You
yeah,
can
hundred
you can
percent.
have direct impact as an individual, especially if you have
Yeah,
good relationships. So
yeah. No, and that was it. It really, 100%. Yeah, you're just, you're part of the community, and hopefully doing something, for the common good for everyone. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you leave Afghanistan and you come back to the States.
yeah. And then, I'm starting to get towards the end of my military. At that point, it's probably I joined when I was 17, and whatever age I was. I don't remember the year either. I'm terrible. when I retired. I'm so sorry.
This is probably 21 years in or something.
Yeah, 20, almost 25, 25 and a half. I think that one of those is a delayed enlistment, so we'll knock it down a little. Yeah, it was a lot of time. And you miss it, for sure. And it goes quick. Every old person says that, but it does.
Did you ever happen to work with any like what am I trying to say? Special operations or like presidential units or anything like that?
Special ops. I mean, like I call them special ops, but here I did a year active duty with Navy EOD. And
okay, they are special operations, by the way.
Yeah, and then I helped move them. They had an active duty side, which I'd worked with, and the reserve side. It's another story, trying to find Navy divers that are reservists. That's hard. Yeah.
Talk through it, man.
Yeah, that's hard. But so anyway, we helped move them up to Little Creek so they're with the SEAL team up there because they work closely. The EOD. So yeah, and then I did a little Panamax, they call it, an exercise in Panama, and that was fun. That was fun. 3 weeks of operations, but just a beautiful place. And that was my year with them, and got in good shape. You work out a couple times a day, and run, and it was fun. Yeah, I wasn't a operator, myself, but I was with them, and I do the exercise until all right, I'll tap out.
you gotta put that disclaimer there, like I'm not an operator, but I got to hang out with them.
Yeah, I wore the same shorts, not the real short ones. I'm like, I'll take the longer ones. Yeah, I'm a man.
Modest.
I'm not that fast. I don't need speed.
Yeah, man, I was attached as an enabler too.
Oh, yeah.
And man, I try to break it down to people how unique it is to be with special operations because it's so surreal because you're just working with true professionals, the best people, people with best mannerisms, and character, like just good folks that really love their country and want to get the job done. So
I mean, some of the award ceremonies, but here we're at Naval Weapons Station, Charleston. When they were here, I sat through 2 Bronze Stars, and Bronze Stars mean a lot in the Navy and Marines. No offense, they're just harder to get. I know in the Navy it has to be the CNO to approve it. And, these guys were both kicking in doors for 15 months, in Iraq, and part of Dev Group, and
oh yeah,
and I've had a few drinks with them, and some of the story. I mean, it's like it wasn't here's a ribbon, and throw it up, and these guys were true warriors.
Oh yeah,
and you're right. Yeah, smart. You got to obviously physically, you got to be able to handle that. And with the Navy part, divers and all that kind of, But 100%. They were some of the best men and women I've worked with for sure.
So what? When was this stint when you're with the EOD team?
Yeah, so that would have been probably been
post Afghanistan.
Yeah, post Iraq, in between. So probably 9, 10, somewhere in there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So the back few years of your career, you want to cover down on that?
Yeah, well, that's kind of I got the back like 2 years was just it was like when you think of the reserves, that's what it was. And I just I had my letter of eligibility to retire for a while, and I just all of a sudden I went in and I said, all right, I'm done. Because it was just I don't want to just collect a paycheck, and it was one of those coffee donut units, not real exciting. You just kind of. Excuse me. Yeah, it was a weird, like, kind of an admin unit where people came in, and it was young people, like E1, E2s, and and my goal, I was the commanding officer, was like, I want to get you out of here, but it's kind of a weird purgatory administratively in the Navy Reserve. So you try to put them in a unit, and that was what my job was. This is terrible.
So at this time, so you're commanding officer of the unit. What are you, commander?
I was a lieutenant commander is what I ended up retiring. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
Oh,
04, right?
Yeah. Like a major for translation for that.
Yeah, those nerds that were in the Navy.
Yeah.
Um,
When I was in Afghanistan, I wouldn't do it with the young enlisted, or junior people, but like if it was like someone, like they'd say, "Hey, Major," like no, I scored higher on the test, Lieutenant Commander, just a joke.
Yeah.
But it was, it usually had to be someone a little bit older to pick on them. That we pick on each other, right?
Yeah. Well,
Don't
I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
the whole thing. Like if you put lance corporals in the room or E3s all in a room, they act like monkeys, right?
Yeah.
But you put generals in the room, guess what? They
Yeah.
act like the monkeys.
Yeah,
Everybody's
yeah.
the same. You know what I mean?
And you don't want to. We'll pick on the Navy, the Air Force. We did, we slammed them earlier at the hotel, and but don't let some civilian pick on any branch. Then you're gonna fight. But we all pick on each other. Army, ditch digger. We can go through all that, and it's all good fun. Yeah.
You got the infantry, the janitorial service after the fact. There's so many roads that are in the military. It's funny, but it's a majority of it's just love.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, even within the branches, on one of my deployments, I was working with the Marines. They were EROs, 130s. They had to come out, and the infantry guys, you can't hear. It's a jet engine, the C-130s. Go that way. When we had people, and they would go, they would just listen to whatever you said. And then we did the aviation branch, or whatever you call it, and the Marines, and they're kind of like Air Force. They're like, go that way. Like, and there's a young officer. I'm like, here, grab a bag, grab a bag, and they wouldn't, they weren't, like, so even within the branches, they pick on each other, and they're different. Not all Marines are, the aviation side were different.
Normal.
Yeah,
normal
they were
dudes.
like normal people. Like they probably didn't eat crayons.
So I was fortunate during my career. I got exposure to pretty much all disciplines and fields, and I ended up, did aviation stuff. I did ground and infantry stuff, did special operations, and I did air.
Yeah.
So I really got a good gamut.
Yeah.
I even did some command element time on my second deployment. Technically, I would consider it kind of command element time. It was under an 06, right?
Right.
Kind of advisory kind of staff role.
Yeah.
But it's really it's awesome experience when you get to work jointly.
Yeah.
It's so fun working jointly. People don't really until the next war kind of kicks off, and they're trying to do it. They're trying to integrate. It was policies that were wrote in the early 2000s, and Obama reiterated it, but how basically we're deploying jointly from now on out. It's never going to be like the one force kicks in the door and then the backfiller forces come in and build the relationships and do the engineering, blah 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 blah. Now it's all kind of all integrated, but I'll never forget the first time I rode on a helicopter on a ship. First of all, we almost died. Yeah. The pilot tried to fly us into the ocean, and then we recover, and then we go and land. It was New River, flying off the ship. You know what I'm talking about? And just horrifying experience. And then I did it a bunch more times. You know what I mean? But you get off a plane and you're thanking him for not killing you, but you're realistically, you're fuck that guy.
Yeah, you almost did. Yeah.
Okay, so
no, the joint is great though, especially joint my deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan was joint Koreans and the Canadians, joint internationally, the Brits and Australians and
your partner forces.
And then another thing, the EWOs they call them, electronic warfare officers in the Navy. So some branches are better at certain things. Like when they first started over in Afghanistan or Iraq, I don't know the whole part of it, but the cell phone IEDs, and so the Navy, they had been a little more advanced in electronic jamming than the other branches. So, I think they're probably deployed over there on an IA, and they're like, we have the capability of, when before it was Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and separate, and you don't share the expertise. And I learned a lot from the other branches. I mean, they're just better at certain things.
Well, it's the whole thing is like concepts. So like the Marine Corps' concepts and ethos and stuff like that are different from the Navy's. Your purpose and task is just different.
Right.
So when you get the opportunity to be around each other, you grow because
Yeah.
they have different policies and disciplinal ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So like, whenever I want to look at doing logistics, I'm looking at it. The Army does it kind of linear, right? Because they're so big compared to the Marine Corps. We have to do specialties. So like we have to know like how to get all functions of logistics across the board.
Right.
If you can't do all of it, then you can't do any of it in the Marine Corps. So like that's kind of how it is. Like you learn all these disciplines, so that way you have the best ability to be capable of deploying a force. You know what I mean? So, but in the Army, it's like, hey, we can bring 14 dudes. And in the Marine Corps, it's like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah. I not logistics, but I've seen how they operate differently. Yeah. 100% with numbers, bigger force.
Yeah,
for sure.
Great respect for the 82nd guys, the special operations guys too. So.
That's why I was in the Iraq with
82nd.
Yeah. And they're alphas, those guys and girls. They're funny. That was fun. You'd brief them, and you had to have a big voice, or we'd brief all the generals and all the different. They'd eat their own if you weren't an alpha. You had to know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move towards. So what was the deciding factor for you to drop the papers and call it and head towards?
Just it was. I wasn't going to deploy again, and it was just I was collecting a paycheck for probably a year and a half longer than I should have. I wasn't accomplishing anything military wise. There is all the branches have reserve units that don't really do anything, and that's where I ended up at that point. And I civilian wise, I wasn't with currently what I'm doing, but I had a job that was I travel, and it was hard to that was the one that paid for the mortgage. The other the 9 to 5 job. So it was time just to call it.
So while we're on talking about this, I don't want to necessarily backtrack. We're going to backtrack just a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. So you're in the reserves.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've been working. I want to know some of the kind of the jobs that you were doing while you. Can you back up to the kind of beginning of force time?
Yeah. So like the majority of my reserve time, I was I did industrial sales and engineering. So I had paper mills and steel mills, hydraulics, and sell, either help solve problems and sell either systems or components for that. And a lot of travel. It was hard. Some of the reserve jobs as a communications officer, we have EKMS. They don't care that you're not there and you're you're at a civilian job in Virginia, a couple states away. So it was difficult, that you couldn't. It wasn't a 1 weekend a month job. I mean, I was on the phone every day, as a reservist. We had an active duty cell there that would handle the, but there you have to. I don't know if you know about crypto, but you got it's still similar. I'm sure it's vault and a 2-person and all that kind of stuff. But it was difficult. A lot of traveling, and I was on the road, so it was all computer stuff had to happen at night. You're back at the hotel type thing.
So I worked with reserve officers through my career too, and it's different for the reserve enlisted from what I can tell. You know why I can tell? Because exactly what you just said. It's throughout the entire time you're always working, and then they want you to deploy as much as the active duty guys because they're like, oh well, gotta get his days in. Let's go ahead and get him out there. We're short numbers, so we'll make him active duty.
Right. And then it doesn't ruin the rotation for active duty. In the Navy, they can go out on a ship then instead of where the other. Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's for sure.
So you did industrial cells for commercial materials, basically. That was how long did you do that for?
Up until I started G-Force. You know, I bought a franchise. So I have terrible years, but probably 18 years maybe. Yeah, yeah.
So
Off and on. You know, there was I took a little break and I did ROTC at a high school. You know, commander. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I enjoyed that. But yeah, it was good. It wasn't like a regular sales pushy. You know, it's more troubleshooting, problem solving.
maintaining relationships. And stuff like
Yes, yeah, that's it.
that.
That's it.
So that's got to be uh, kind of like a unique experience to put like 18 years, right? You know,
Yeah,
you're going to
yeah,
be retiring from the military, right?
yeah,
So you got a pension coming in. You're going to get some disability
yeah,
from the
yeah,
VA and stuff like that. And you just said, fuck it.
yeah,
You woke up one day and you were like, I
yeah,
want to be a part of something else. And
yeah,
what was the driving factor for you to kind of move away from?
yeah.
Because they're going to give you a pension too. You know what I mean? Like
Right,
you're giving
right.
up a pension
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go out and become your
yeah,
own owner.
yeah. So you know, I wanted back to at the beginning, childhood. Excuse me, my dad, had his own parents had their own business, and I always wanted to have my own business. And I was watching Boxing Friends on the weekend, and I had a little thing on there, and it was the G-Force, the founder Jack Child, and the first franchise, and it had a little thing on it. So I kind of got research, and it was that Monday I talked to Jack and so what he's a veteran himself, and he had another like franchise. It was not veteran, and then I don't know the exact story. He sold that, but then he wanted to do a franchise. The cost of entry is good. I mean, I've looked into franchises over the years. It's very good, and so we're all there's. I was the 12th franchise, and now there's 46. Just got one in Hawaii. Um, Navy SEAL out there, and anyway, we're close. We help each other. We'll travel to go help each other. We talked about that a little bit earlier offline. That we just they're brothers and sisters, and I thought I don't know. I just want to do it. It's kind of a niche. I parking lot striping and warehouses. Thought I'd painting lines. Uh, never never even paid attention to them really.
Yeah.
You just see them on there, and it's kind of a niche. It's not everyone's not doing it. Different markets are obviously different, but here in Charleston, it's I have competitors, but not a ton.
Um,
Yeah,
so, yeah, it's kind of, I've never met an owner
yeah,
of like a
yeah,
like it does markings and
yeah,
well
yeah,
it's not just markings alone. You do ADA
yeah.
stuff,
ADA,
you turf marking.
yeah,
Do you do any like ground break or anything like
yeah.
that? Do you put signs up and stuff like
And
that?
wheel stops, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then some light asphalt work. Each one does a little different. I subcontract out maybe seal coating, and that's of the parking lots. Just doesn't make sense at this point for me to get into that. But yeah. So we'll get in. Yep, signs and wheel stops and bollards. In front of the buildings, so people don't run through the place.
Uh, while I'm thinking about it, so it's obviously part of a franchise.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you become a member potentially? And because
Yeah.
I want you to
Yeah.
plug that in there because it might
Yeah.
be this would be great for
Right.
somebody potentially.
Right. Yeah. The territories are pretty big. He wants and you'd go to our website. I'll just give that is gogforce.com, and then you can go find exactly who to contact. But then again, I'm out of Charleston. You can always my phone number is on there. Social media, it's on there. People call all the time. They want when someone initially calls, they will say call different franchises, and I can if you're selling the franchise, you're going to talk differently than the people doing it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, going on that, so we don't overlap our territories. So if you live in Charleston or Greenville or whatever, right? You're not going to get a franchise. You might have to move somewhere where there isn't one. And it's I'm not going to give costs because I don't know what they are now, and that would be something for them. But
Sure.
it's compared to other franchises, it's a lot, more, it's a
Reasonable.
lot easier to get into
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
we talked offline. You said it's been open 6 years,
Yes.
46
Yes.
franchises all
Yeah.
around the United States.
Yes.
Potential for growth is really good.
Yeah.
You've been in it for, you said 3 years?
3 years. Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I was a 12th. It was me and a guy, and there's several in Texas. And it was, we were both like, kicking around the idea, and I didn't want to be 13. So I like, hey, here's the money. I sent him his money real quick. So he's 13, Chad in Texas. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah. And it's, trying kind of lost my train of thought there where we're going.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we were. I was just kind of.
Yeah.
Well, we're working
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
G-FORCE. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like it's.
Yeah.
How I just wanted to know how you ended up in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
no, and so and it's grown. We're the largest footprint of we're the largest in the world striping group, I guess is what you'd call it. We almost cover the whole U.S., including Hawaii now. We all wanted to go train the guy in Hawaii, but
Of course,
yeah,
just like the Air Force TDY.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. That was TDY to Hawaii for 3 months or 3 weeks. It's tough. That and Guam, where they were hard assignments. Yeah.
I gotta plug this in here right now. Guam, God, if you can get stationed in Guam,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a small island, but
Yeah.
Jesus, it's so nice.
Yeah.
It's a territory of the United States, so vacation there
Yes.
too. It
Yeah.
boosters the economy down there.
Yeah.
We took over the damn island. Least we
Yeah.
can do is, as American citizens, is go
Yeah.
fucking visit it.
That's
So,
right. Yep. If you love water and beaches and that kind of, it's a place definitely to go.
God, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Caves out there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy beautiful. Plus,
That is.
there's a lot of island chains next to it too that you can go
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I didn't get to do a lot of that time, but
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, going back to G-Force, yeah, we're tight. We're a tight group. We meet once a year for our convention and whatever. But I'll see the guys. Within a few states, they might have a big job, or I might have a big job and need help. You have everybody has a certain type of equipment, but then you might buy a specialty thing. And anyway, that I'll loan that out. We'll meet. We're just, I know you're not going to get that from another franchise. It's not a veteran. Some of them offer veteran discounts. What makes us different is we're a veteran only.
Yeah.
I guess I talked if I die or when my son, they could grandfather him in, take it over, but you can't buy it unless you're a veteran.
How's your son now?
26. Yeah.
Okay. He doesn't plan on serving.
No. None of my kids. I don't know what happened with that.
Well,
Yeah.
well, this is a conversation I have with people all the time. It's just like some people don't have the call to serve.
Yeah.
And I don't.
Right.
People have like a weird notion that they need to say like, oh, I should have.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
No.
It's like, no, man.
Yeah.
We need citizens out there that are
Mhm.
being productive members and like
Mhm.
taking care of their business, starting families,
Yeah.
being good members of society.
Yeah.
When I started the podcast, I put that in there too. I said, this is for obviously the active duty dudes and the vets that are out there
Yeah.
because one, we share these stories, people get to laugh, they get to enjoy these type of things.
Yeah.
But also for people who've never served, they get to kind of see like into the mindset
Yeah.
of the veteran
Right.
and kind of go through and see what we were exposed to and learn from us. It's just like shared knowledge. You got these community supporters that are like, how do I get an understanding of how to talk to a guy
Yeah.
like you and I that serve?
Yeah.
And it's just like anything else, but
Yeah.
specific things that make us tick and like the
Yeah.
things that we enjoy more because of our time in service or whatever the case is. So
Yeah.
it's whenever we talk about G-Force, I was like, oh man, that's when I discovered it because I discovered it on my own because I was like looking for a referral system to interview
right.
veterans and stuff like that, and ended up just reaching out to people. And then you were initially like,
Well, I
man,
like to be more in the background, So it's not really. It wasn't you. It was just me. I don't love to, I'm more of a background, Like you're talking about. It's kind of off topic, but kind of what you're talking about, like what people can do is, when we used to fly into the BWI or Atlanta from deployments from Iraq or Afghanistan, and the people there, that greet you, that I'd get teared up, and that was really something that that shows, and it wasn't for me. It was like I never felt like that, and I felt like for the people I was with, like that means a lot. When you're at the airport with flag, and then there's 1,000 people,
Yeah.
Watching,
Showing you all the love.
Yeah, that means a lot for those who've ever done that, or how you can. The USOs are always great at the airports.
Speaking of USOs, I'm not plugging for the USO, but I'm plugging for everybody.
Yeah.
I plug for
Yeah.
quality. I plug for when I talk about things and I broadcast them, it's because they're great and they're good for society or whatever the case is. And so I rest is so, but I did Keiko duty, and that's casualty assistance stuff.
Yeah.
And the U.S. though did it right. They went out there and they announced a service member who passed away, and it's a beautiful thing that they do, because they do a lot of good work. And they're everywhere, and they take care of active duty guys and veterans. And you can volunteer at their get your volunteer service medal and all that shit.
Right.
If you're still active duty, but it's just the right thing to do, to go out there and just participate in something. So
no, they're when you're deployed, they're there. I mean, they have their tents with whatever place you can relax or send videos back home when internet isn't always great. Even today's world, there's spots at like video games or whatever. They're there. They're not volunteers there. I would hope not.
That'd be crazy.
I want to go Baghdad and volunteer. But anyway, it's a great organization.
I don't think I've ever talked about them on the podcast.
Yeah, I know.
So.
It's kind of brought it. I mean, it's
it's just a discussion between you and I.
Yeah.
So you're in G-FORCE. What areas do you cover as?
So I cover my territory official is like Myrtle Beach, coastal South Carolina. I call it Myrtle Beach, inland of Florence down to Hilton Head, and then nobody really owns Savannah, so it's kind of my territory because I'm the closest.
Georgia.
Yes, yeah. And since my territory, Hilton Head, butts right up to Savannah, and the way they structure the territory, Savannah alone wouldn't be enough to support. So I don't think if someone's from Savannah saying, "Oh, I don't know if it would be enough to let you to buy that territory," I would not go if you did. But I think you probably need more of an area for our business model to make it work. Everyone does well. I mean, in this, because it's you get good training. If people come and help, if you're not getting it, or you need whatever, you're getting something new, I'll go help. Somebody. And everyone does it for me.
What I was getting towards before you have around conversations was, I think it's fantastic that you guys have that network.
Yes.
And it's veteran owned. And I talk to my buddies, and they're like, "Man, you're pushing this veteran thing so hard. People aren't going to appreciate it." Like, they're going to appreciate it because veterans, especially business owners, they're going to have phenomenal results because they see the higher picture and quality. And two, you guys take care of each other. That's what I'm trying to get. It's you guys have community connection automatically, and you're going to have more relationships. And I think it's fantastic.
So in this line of work, it's it's precision. In most people in the military, you're taught precision from day one, boot camp. I mean, it's drill. I mean, it's drilled in you, literally.
Well, I try to break bread with Rich. He's so busy down here.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is you'll keep growing. Because you have that disciplined mindset, and you have resolve, and you have the ability to be a critical thinker because of your service. Not saying that civilians don't have it, but the exposure, is that it's different, because you have to do it all the time. So by the time you make it through an entire career, you end up, solving extremely complex tasks in a multinational, in our case, not everyone's a multinational front where you travel, you meet people, you got to solve problems with different people that don't speak your language. You have multicultural problems. All this kind of decision makings
Yeah.
that you have to do throughout your career, and especially in your shoes where you end up being like front man on a C5, so you're always dealing with people and building relationships, and then you go and you become a commissioned officer, and like that's so weird because you end up taking multiple jobs during your time in training.
You do jobs like the jobs I did in Iraq and I didn't know what I was doing before I got there. I mean, like I think one of the you're in charge of one of the little programs was the urinalysis program. Like, I mean, okay, I didn't know I was in charge of that for Afghanistan. Like,
The PP checker.
yeah, and so that was just kind of a funny story, real short. But I got a call from down one of the fobs in Afghanistan, and they were burning, I don't know how much, a ton of opium that they found, and the wind shifted.
Oh yeah,
and it went to the base. So the doctor, it was a small fob, probably the only doctor on the fob. He called like panicking. He's like, everyone just inhaled all this opium, and it was a weekend, which I obviously work weekends, but my point of contact was in the Pentagon, and so, well, he's not there, but I'll have an answer, so anyway, they now I can say it, but they got like a 6 month or a year freebie, of if they test positive, but they don't tell them that because then they're going to go out, it's going to be a couple that will abuse it. Anyway, yeah, you were talking about the responsibility, and a lot of that is before you're able to legally drink. I mean, the things you mature quicker. If you join at a young age, I mean, you're doing things that grown men don't do. Are responsible for.
Well, the thing too is that you don't have a fallback in the military other than the people that you're around.
Right.
There's safety nets, of course. You got a paycheck and stuff like that, but you have to be the determined one. You can utilize these networks and friendships and your people that you serve with and your command and stuff like that. But it's ultimately on you to become successful in the military and have a illustrious type of career. You have to put yourself in the positions. When I offer things to people when I was in, it was always, hey, I will do everything I can in my power to help you out, but ultimately you have to put your foot forward. Because if you don't apply yourself, you're not going to be successful. And then I talk about this on some other podcasts. I know that you haven't got around to watching them yet. You will now.
Yeah, I will now. Yeah.
It's not always. It's kind of the same thing with someone abused that that relationship. It's that there's always a small percentage of the military members who just aren't gonna give a fuck, and then they're gonna get out and be shitty members of society, and they're entitled and stuff like that.
Right.
I like the mindset that you have is that you're driven, you know what I mean, and then one day you just came to and you're like, man, this isn't it for me. I want to be my own boss, and I want to participate in this, and you got fortunate enough to discover it, which is crazy.
Right, it's just a freak thing. Exactly, and I would, I'm not plugging G-FORCE. I don't make anything, if someone else buys a franchise. If there is, there's not a lot of territories open, but it is a great organization. I got yesterday he was calling me so we can meet for dinner before this, and I have 2 cell phone numbers, and and I was looking over at my cell phone. I have 2, one my business, and I'd left it at home, and anywhere I'm going is the Jack, the guy who runs the franchises, he just call randomly, how you doing, and checking up, and everyone does that. They're just a good group to work with, and that's you miss the military when you're not in it, and we're not in the military, but at least we have those stories we can have a couple of drinks about, and fun times.
It's second thing I did. I offered Rich water, and then I said, do you want to drink any bourbon today?
Yeah,
it's a little early. So.
I did, a little early. Yeah, vodka. No, just kidding.
So it's great. I love it, man. I really do.
For sure.
So you're it's chronologically you think about the way that you go and end up in the life that you're living now, and could you project when you were a young airman and then a young sailor that you would be retired, big family, traveling and business owner and stuff like that?
No, not really, not at all. No, and then especially specifically what I'm doing, but life happens for a reason, and I wouldn't change any of it. You know, it's I really I enjoy it. It's nice to have your own business. You know, there's stresses. I mean, there's you don't shut off. You still gotta it's when it's yours, and you might not whatever. So you have to answer. But overall, I really enjoy it. I enjoy the you can get some freedom. Most of the time, if I have to like whatever someone's a niece is getting married, I can typically take a Friday off or work my schedule around it. It's just a little easier than not working for a company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to close out here
Yeah.
in a minute. I know that you're a
Yeah.
businessman and a busy
Yeah.
guy, and you
Yeah.
got plans after this, I'm
Yeah.
sure. So I want to give you the opportunity to put your information out there and kind of talk through the next, because I know that I put it out there in the advertisement for you
Yes.
that eventually you're going to be looking to hire veterans and stuff like that. And I wanted to talk about maybe the time frame and then how people can apply to your company.
Yes. Yeah. So in the details, if the easiest way I think to find me is is you go to like I mentioned earlier, our main website, GForce.com, and then you go to Charleston, and it'll have my phone number, email, and my plan is right now it's me and my son, so what happened? Well, hopefully by the end of the year, we're growing where we want to hire, and here's how my preference is veterans first, like veteran families, and we want to hire veterans first, and in this area, I don't think we're gonna have a problem. Some areas are just tougher. We know there's a lot of Navy and Air Force bases here, but that's our goal is to hire veterans or their families, spouses, kids, grown kids, and yeah, man, it's been a good ride so far, 3 years, and every year is better, business wise.
Growth and
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know I said I want to close
Yeah.
out, man, but I have so many questions always.
Yeah.
So, do you do any charitable work during?
I do. I mean, I don't like. I'll be honest. I don't go out look for it. Not because I don't want to, but some of the charitable work like I have probably this week or definitely next weekend. American Legion, they're doing an addition. I'm adding some few stalls and handicap stalls, and then usually they'll reach out to me, companies, or organizations. I like last year I did there's a new school for autistic children, and of course you do anytime someone like that reaches out, any kind of organization that's good. That's where I mean, so I do my service that way, and what we do, I'll just do it for free, or that I think that one there was a lot of wheel stuff, like a hard cost. So I said, you contact the company that I buy them from and tell them who you are and get a discount, and we'll do all the 2 or 3 day labor for free.
Yeah, that's great.
We try to do that.
Yeah, I figured as much because of your character mannerisms that you're the type of guy that would do something like that. So
yeah, you definitely want to do it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's
feel good.
Yeah, well, it's part of the podcast mission is like involvement in the community is something I look for in my guests, and I know that you're one of those guys. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's good.
All right. Well, I'm going to close it out here, Rich.
Thank you, Jordan.
Any last comments before I turn it over?
No, I appreciate you having me, man. Yeah, it's been fun.
I hope this helps your business grow. By the way.
Yeah.
So thank you to the guests who obviously tuned into the podcast. I appreciate you, Rich, for making some time on a Sunday afternoon now to come out and record with me, man. It's people like you that allow me to interview them that'll grow the podcast, and I'm hoping that you're saying probably by December you can maybe get some veterans or their family or a quality member to join the team if it ends up working out. So reach out to them at G-FORCE. I think it's /Charleston.
I think the /Charleston. But if you can find a location,
they have Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and I'll post all the links and stuff like that and on the video. This will be available on Spotify, YouTube. All the information for you guys will be available on my Twitter handle, Fire and Forget PC, and then Fire and Forget on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, when I discovered you, I was excited. I was like, man, it's 46, veteran. I was like, this is it, man. This is going to be a good interview. I'm excited. So, as always, to my guest, thanks for tuning in to the Fire and Forget podcast. Make sure you guys like, follow, subscribe, comment, share. And if you know a veteran, refer them to the podcast so we can continue to grow. And thanks again, Rich, for coming on, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother.
Yes, sir.